Okay guys, so we are down here at the Antique. This is a couple days, 2 days after the hurricane, after Hurricane Florence arrived. We're going to check on the place. I really don't know what to expect, but I know there's a lot of water, probably some trees down, that kind of thing, but just going to go check it in and see what we need to bring back next time to start cleaning up the place. I'm sure it'll be chainsaws, stuff like that. Really, I just hope there's no damage to the house and no huge trees down and that kind of thing. So I'm going to turn the microphone around so I can show you what I'm seeing, kind of just describe what I'm seeing here, so stay tuned. Okay, so first glance it doesn't look too bad. There's some branches down in the yard, but you know, looking around here, there's no trees that are blown over, so that's definitely a good thing. Okay, so here's a walnut tree. Looks like it split. Maybe a third of that is gone. That's probably gonna have to come out, but not the end of the world. Trees we can replace eventually. Lots of small branches down, nothing too big. It's a big dead piece of trunk that fell behind the grapevine over here. Man, so that's a couple big branches over here. That'll be a mess to get out. Just a mangled mess. So it looks like it just fell from up here. Maybe right in there and over there. All through here, so anyway, just big huge trunks, lots of chainsaw, and this big viney mess that somehow got wrapped up around the grapevine here. Oh wow. Alright, so this is all from the storm surge. So right now I am basically 13 feet above the normal sea level. And so if you see right here, this is kind of like the very top of the hill. So this is 13 feet up. And all this was basically grass that we maintain. And all this crap down here is just debris that's left. So right here there's a really big tree that fell. A really large tree. Lots of boat dock pieces, phone poles, man, all kinds of lumber. All the way down there. Oh man, then down there, that's the old boat ramp. And on the boat ramp, there's a very large tree on top of the boat ramp with the root ball still intact. So that is, I don't even know how I'm going to get that off the water. But again, the silver lining is there's no trees on top of the house, so that's a good start. So I'm going to hold on to that, and the rest I'm just going to tackle one thing at a time. But this is just a tremendous amount of debris that has washed up. It's incredible. All right, let's go around down lower and I'll show you. All right, so this was all basically underwater. So this mark right here kind of marks the height of the storm surge. Hurricane Irene, about 8 years ago, it came up higher on this hill, but it didn't breach the hill. But I would say there's more storm debris with this one than there was with Irene. I mean, there's so many pieces of lumber. It's all got nails in it. There's a park bench from somebody else's dock. And it just goes down as far as you can see to our cousin's lawn down there. Alright, so here's the big thing that I just don't know how to handle yet, so we'll have to handle this one thing at a time. So right here is basically a boat ramp, and so on the left used to be a place where you could tie up your boat, and then on the right was a place you could tie up your boat. This is a concrete side of a boat ramp, and then this is a concrete side of a boat ramp as well. So now we've got this tree going across the concrete with the root ball there. And when the water goes out, we'll have to chainsaw that up and somehow drag that out, which I can't even imagine how much that weighs. But so you might be wondering where the normal line is. So the normal water line is the bulkhead of the rocks, is kind of the normal place where the tide comes in, and so all this is usually just marsh grass that we let grow up, and so now it's all underwater, and that's pretty typical in any kind of, you know, moderate storm. But again, the hurricane went way up into there. So this is going to be a big problem to clean up. All right, let's go see what's down here. There's quite a few little benches over here. So there's a bench here and a bench there. Tons of lumber. You can see all the plastics. So this stuff, see how dense that is. It's just super thick, wet grass, and it's probably full of snakes. We've seen that in the past. There's another really large dock kind of there, probably a 20-foot section of somebody's dock over there. Anyway, so here's the next. So this tree fell right here. So the crazy thing is, I don't think this was our tree. I think this is a tree that fell and washed up. Because I know this tree's been here, but this one, there's no, I don't recall another tree being right here. So this whole tree just fell on somebody else's property and then just washed up over the shore here. Can't tell, looks like an oak tree, but my gosh. Looking back through there, I don't see any other root holes. I think this might have fell somewhere way down there. Anyway, a lot to clean up. And then there's all these little railroad timbers. It's crazy how small the railroad timber looks in all of this. Lots of those laying around. But honestly, I don't think we lost any trees. I think this tree, it's crazy to say that, look at this big tree, but I think that's actually somebody else's tree that just floated over here. So there's that silver lining. I see a duffel bag over there. Maybe it's a duffel bag full of money. Probably not, but. And this stuff here. It's probably about 10 inches thick of just grass. It's all wet. So this is the, actually somebody's just, their tool bag. All right, let's go see what else is going on down here. So it's really amazing how destructive a storm surge can be. And with this hurricane, it was clearly not a, you know, a heavy wind type of a storm. I mean, there's really no trees down, which is pretty unique for this type of storm. I think it was around 100 miles an hour at the storm center, and we're, I don't know, probably 100 miles away from where the storm center was. But all this is just storm surge. And so if you're not familiar with it, you might just think it's the, you know, the waves crashing in, but really the storm surge just kind of pushes all the water. It's almost like when you have a bowl full of water and you're just tilting it and all that water just rushes in, but it kind of rushes in slowly, and that's even ahead of the storm. And so way out that way is the mouth of the sound, the Pamlico Sound, and so that when that hurricane comes in, it's just pushing all this water forward. And as you get, you know, this is about 3 miles across the river there, the Pamlico River, and as you get way up there, you know, eventually it gets into a very narrow river where it's only, you know, a couple hundred yards across, you know, miles and miles up the river. But down here it's 3 miles, and so when there's a storm surge, you know, here it comes up way up the hill. Thankfully it didn't get to the top of the hill, but you know, further inland where it narrows, there's less and less places for that water to go, so it impacts, you know, people in those communities even more. Like in Little Washington, where that's where you see the water coming up over the streets into the downtown area. So, but some of these trees are, you know, some of these old cedars, especially up there, are a couple hundred years old, probably 300 or 400 years old. They're probably 6 feet wide at the trunks. And they're tough as nails, but their branches usually break off, and so I'm kind of surprised that none of their branches broke off. Big branches, you know. But this thing down here, this big tree, huge, entire intact oak tree, just washed up by itself onto the lawn. And that's probably a 75-foot tall tree with the root ball and everything, just sitting on the lawn. Plenty of park benches here, so looks like we have park benches now, so we can sit down when we get tired from cleaning all this up. And then this one here, I just don't even know what to think yet. Gonna have to get some put my engineering mind to that to see how we can lift that up and cut it into chunks and get pieces off the dock. You can kind of see the dock under it. The water's gone down a tad. Right there you see the the concrete edge of the boat ramp as it just comes under the water, and there's an identical one over on this side, which is still submerged. And I'm sure this big tree, you know, weighs several thousand pounds easily, if not more, since it's totally waterlogged. And the heaviest part is right on top of the boat ramp. So problem is, it's the lightest it's ever going to be right now because it's floating, and the water is only going to go down from here. So once it goes down a bit, I might be able to cut some pieces into chunks, but to be able to, if I cut this right here and get it off, I'm not even sure how I'll be able to lift that out. I mean, that's just an enormous root ball. But if you let it sit there, then the next storm is going to blow it in here even further, or knock out all these pilings, and that's going to cause damage. So anyway, something to think about. We'll get to that later. It's definitely not going anywhere right now. Let's go check out the rest of the yard. Anyway, you have to eat the elephant, my friends. You just have to start somewhere and start picking up. And just be glad no loss of life. Not here anyway. couple big branches up here that got snapped off. This is my favorite tree. It's probably 400 years old. But it looks relatively okay. Just kind of scatters these rocks like marbles. There's another big phone pole. All these gray things, I'm not sure if you can tell from the camera, but they're just big boulders. We've got all this debris up here. And that washed out pretty significantly. These things look so small when you see big trees down, but that timber probably weighs 500 pounds. Lots of washout. Yeah. So this was all a pretty significant slope that we had before, so that's been scooped out.
Yeah, which means all
and washed out. Yep, and that puts all the pines,
all those pines
right there at risk.
Well, there's nothing we can do about this. They're all coming down.
All the way down there is the same way, so let's see what's down here. But yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do to repair it. And these were all pieces of concrete that were laid in the past to keep that from happening, and then that eventually erodes and washes away as well.
That's how Dad tried to stop it.
But all you can do is try to slow it down. Another big trunk there. That'll stay there.
We got a lot of planning to do.
Yeah. It's just crazy. This big cypress here looks like it did okay. There's a couple limbs out of it, but then this other one just washed right up. It's a pecan tree. So if somebody is missing a pecan tree and would like it back, we will let you have it back for free if you'd come pick it up. I don't think there's any pecans left, so there's no hope for that. So we've got several telephone poles. If the phone company would like those back, you can come and get those at your leisure. So that trunk is probably 2 feet thick.
I think this is about the same size as that, the top of that, the concrete that came out in the yard. Except we got a root ball to do.
Yeah. Yeah, the trunk we could cut up.
Well, the root ball, you can cut the roots off too to get it manageable too.
And the root ball, eventually we can get that picked up. So just for frame of reference, Ann is 5'2.5". And so you can see the tree over there, how big that is in comparison to Ann. And it goes way up there. And this debris field might just look like just simple sticks, but it's probably 10 inches deep, like tall, and it's full of lumber, There's a dock over there that you can just barely see, kind of shooting off that way. Just massive tree, tree limbs that are like a foot thick type tree limbs.
I think we got 5 dock benches.
Yeah. We could have our own park here eventually because, yeah, there's like 5 dock benches now that have washed up.
There's a decent tool bag in good shape.
Yep.
Grab that.
There's a tool bag.
Might as well.
Tons of plastic trash. A lot of snakes. The moccasins will be here. When we try to clean this up, they just get all embedded up in the damp grass. So much lumber. The difficult part is this: you can't really pick it up together because the lumber has nails in it, so you don't want to take the lumber and the grass and put it in the same place because then that'll rot. So just for reference, again, here's Anne, and there's the tree next to her. So I'd say the tree trunk is probably 75 feet long, maybe. And the tree trunk right there is probably 4 feet tall, maybe 5 feet tall. I think a lot of it is submerged. But that's going to be super heavy. Yeah. So here's a really large pine tree. See how big that is.
Oh, God, I didn't see that.
And then you can see where it just washed out everything around, and the roots are exposed. And that happens every storm too, so unless you backfill that in, that will become a bigger and bigger problem, and then this tree will fall, so you gotta fill this in. So I'm really glad to see this tree is okay. It's one of my favorite trees because it's got fern, like the fern that kind of grows across the branches there. It's really pretty. But not really a single branch fell out of that tree. There's a little snapping turtle. Somehow made its way over here, and he's a little baby about the size of your fist, maybe. All right, we'll leave him alone.